Welcome back to Heart and Home Channel. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Whitney.
Today we're talking about barndominiums or post-frame structures versus traditional stick-built homes and why you might want to choose one over the other.
Or not choose one over the other. But before we get started, we make weekly videos on home building, DIY, light homesteading, and debt-free living. So if you're interested in any of those topics, please consider checking out our previous videos and subscribing.
So let's dive into it.
Okay, so first we're just going to dive right in and talk about Barndominium perks, or it's many other names too. Postframe, shouse, shed house, what else?
Pole barn.
Yeah, pole barn. That's very popular.
The most common name for it is pole barn.
Okay, so Kevin's going to go into detail a little bit about some Barndominium perks.
So the biggest strength that I see with building a barndominium is that it's actually quite a bit more DIY friendly in my opinion. It's significantly less time to get to a dried-in state, which means that your materials of the home are protected from the weather. And when you're working with just one person, or if you're a husband-wife duo, like it's gonna take you a while before your materials are ready. Unless you have spent quite a bit of money on the really nice stuff, you might have to rip all your work out and start over again if you haven't done your job quickly enough, or if you've been unfortunate enough to have like really terrible weather. In line with that, it's really easy to hire out someone to just build the outside shell and leave all of the interior work for yourself. Now you can kind of do that with a stick frame as well, but typically with a stick framed home, there's things like interior load-bearing walls. A lot more interior framing has to be done alongside of the shell of the house. You don't typically just do the shell, and it takes quite a bit longer. So you're gonna pay more in man hours, more in material, because there's always the material markup. Just generally, it's easier to segment out that initial portion with the barndominium. And so there's also no load-bearing walls on the inside. So if you're just doing a single-story home like we are, you actually have all the freedom that you want to do whatever you want with the floor plan. And you know, obviously, if you're doing a two-story home, then you can do some like posts and beams and stuff like that, or you can do load-bearing walls if you so choose. But yeah, you're completely free. And with that for us, that also meant that we only had to have the exterior of the home engineered, and then we actually used an app called Planet 2D for our interior floor plan layout. So we didn't have to hire an architect at all. So it's another big savings for us.
So kind of in line with what Kevin was saying, how the inside doesn't have load-bearing walls, it is actually the best option for wide open spaces.
Definitely. Normally I think like there's a limit with traditional stick frame homes that you don't really see big rooms more than like 30 feet wide, just because they have issues going that far. But with barndominiums, I mean, you can do 40, 60, 80 feet, you know, these clear span trusses. There's almost no limit to it. I mean, obviously there's a limit to it, but I mean, eventually you start getting into warehouse territory, and those are quite large. But I don't know anyone that would, well, actually it kind of sounds awesome to live in one.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so the next perk is that it's quite cost effective.
With the barndominium, it's definitely the best bang for your buck that you're gonna get, but the condition on that is that you do have to kind of work with the parameters of what the pole barn is strong at. So generally that means that you're going to want to keep your building shape quite a bit simpler. Generally most buildings that are on the cheaper, are like relatively cheaper to a stick framed home, are ones that have like the main rectangle in the home and then maybe one extrusion off of that, maybe some dormers, but each one of those definitely adds on the cost. The more simple that you can make it, better off your pocketbook will be.
The shell of the building typically goes together quite quickly, so if you are hiring that out, you'll save a bit of money doing that as well. Also, less wood is used on the structure, and as we know right now, wood is off the chain, prices are crazy, so.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, we're building our home without any plywood or OSB products, which is like $7-8 10 times the price as normal right now because of craziness. Who knows how long those prices are going to stay like that.
Don't mind our children running around upstairs if you hear screams or stomps.
Yeah.
They're fine, I promise. The next pro of a Barndominium is efficiency. Kevin will go more into detail about that.
So the way that Barndominiums are framed, it lends itself really well to having thick walls, whereas in a stick-built home, you might have to make up for that insulation on the exterior of the home. So it just makes it a little bit easier to get like 8-10 inches of insulation in the walls, which is what code is requiring these days. So a little bit simpler. The other point in efficiency is that because there's less wood and depending on the style of framing that you use, there could be almost no thermal bridging between the outside and the inside with studs, or there could be just a significant amount less.
Okay, and then there actually are a couple miscellaneous benefits to building a Barndominium or choosing a Barndominium to build. One of them is that typical Barndominiums are built with mostly non-flammable materials. So what are those? Like sheet metal?
Yeah, so sheet metal, and then a lot of people do sort of the stone wainscot. So having non-flammable materials is just like a additional resistance to wildfires. And if you live out in the country, that's not an insignificant risk. So it's not a bad idea.
Another miscellaneous benefit to choosing building a Barndominium is the lifetime of the metal roof. If installed properly, how long is it?
Yeah, so it's like 100 years. It'll outlast the person who installed it
as long as it's done right.
Yeah, if it's done properly. And the benefit of doing that on a Barndominium is that, you know, sometimes if you do that in like a residential, more traditional home, it doesn't look like it belongs as much just because most people haven't switched over to that. But in a Barndominium, you know, it looks pretty natural with the other sheet metal products. So.
Definitely. Okay, so now we will move on to traditional stick frame homes and what the perks of choosing that to build would be. So the first thing we're going to talk about is that it's generally quite simple, like more simple than a Barndominium. So Kevin will go more into detail about that.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to simplicity, it's less, because it does have a more complex actual frame structure. There's more forces and things to account for, but it's simple in that it's been done for so long, and you're going to be able to find way more instruction and people who know what they're doing when it comes to stick-built homes. It's just more information because it's been done. It's been more popular for much longer.
There's more floor plans available. There's a lot of good contractors, more products designed for this style of home, like siding and other things. Yeah, you can go online and find a builder and choose the style of home you want to build and buy a plot of land and boom.
Yeah, you're much less likely to run into someone that is going to be able to build you a turnkey Barndominium outside of Texas.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So one of the other big benefits is that you're going to be able to do complex geometry, multiple roof peaks, lots of extrusions, dormers, and various little bump outs, and you know, like if you were doing a Victorian home, how they typically have those circular bump outs, the kind of tower that comes out like that, or
like
a breakfast
bay window.
Bay windows, things like that. Those do not lend themselves very well to Postframe. If you were going to do some of that stuff on Postframe, you'd have to build it out as a stick frame edition. And generally, you're going to find more of that kind of style of home in more densely populated neighborhoods. So if you're in a neighborhood with a lot of HOA restrictions on what kind of homes can be built, you may be forced into
building a stick frame.
Yeah. Or if you're worried about fitting in, or if you have neighbors that are worried about you fitting in.
Another perk is building loans. You could run into some problems potentially trying to get a loan to build a Barndominium versus a stick frame home that the banks have been working with forever, basically.
Yeah.
So some banks might not be as willing to lend to build that kind of home.
Yeah, I've heard of a number of stories of people going in trying to get a loan on a Barndominium, and the people just aren't educated on the topic enough to understand that it's a great option.
And that's not the case everywhere. That's probably in certain more in certain areas than others.
Yep, definitely.
So in summary, a traditional stick frame built home might be a better option for you if you're building a neighborhood or if you're hiring out someone to build your home and you want more access to lots of different contractors. So it actually might be better to do that. Do the traditional stick frame build instead of the Barndominium if those are your options.
Yeah, it'll be a smoother process for you if you're looking to have someone do most of the work for you, if you go with what people are typically more familiar with.
Definitely. Okay, and on the other side of the coin, the Barndominium might be the best option for you if you are a DIYer, if you want the biggest bang for your buck and you don't mind a home that's on the simpler side as far as of how it looks, basically a big rectangular box. If you don't mind any of those things, this might be a great option for you.
Also, alongside that, you know, there is if you look on Pinterest, you can find a ton of amazing looking Barndominiums that have a very unique style. And, you know, you may not save any money going after that style particularly, but if that's what you're into, like it definitely has some really cool options in there.
We hope this video was helpful to you. Please let us know in the comments if you think a Barndominium or traditional stick frame home is more your vibe. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, if there's anything that you think that we missed, we would additionally love to hear that too. If you found this video to be helpful, then please hit that like button. It helps us a ton, and maybe hit that subscribe if you're interested in the things that we talked about before. We've got a lot of really cool videos planned in the future, things that you have definitely not seen anywhere else that are going to be super helpful for anybody doing the same kind of journey that we are, so stay tuned.
Bye!
Nailed it, yeah!